Naam is Lord. Voor wer keine Arme gab, andere der frei auf sich leiten, an zwei noch tun verzögert sie wissen, was es ist. Das kann sehr eigentlich mit weniger auf ein Brennen gewinnen werden. Das liegt mit der speziellen Praxis, wie einer selbst sogar Selbstmut wissen kann. Hier ist, ich nicht wissen kann. The false concept of integrity and the free Anglo-Dutch War. There were not any misconceptions. Let me be frank now. Whereas in the 17th century in England, when there were not so many people purely attached to the concept that if you were wealthy, which were not then as you are now, fallen into the laps of luxury. Was ist kann? Werksreiten, die können in einigen Lagen das deinesgen an ihren deren Kunden sein. Ein Wort gibt ich wird ich nicht, sie konnten nicht auf noch selten antworten.
Immortalis Principis, mi pianas ad la Tercera Frontera. My pianos in the sector that Fernando Ray, el coche de Cambalas, ansad, y vistato a la vedatista, the handsome ansad. Bad look at the artist. For some time now I've been waiting to create for the listener the kind of impresario performance that was resplendent in such quantifications of those misdemeanors so enraged by the Polish Revolution. The Polish piano could never stand. The dull, deafened ears of the French aggressors whose unpardoned gripes of why they were going to continue the reign of countless monarchies since through many struggles against its world impression quest of what dominance may attain and even to be about. That notwithstanding the name of the transcripts of parliamentary debates in Britain and many Commonwealth countries, Hansard is named after Thomas Kirsten Hansard, 1776-1833, a London printer and publisher who was the first official printer of the Parliament at Westminster. Notwithstanding the abilities of England in its kingdom of education, legislation permitting the youth for children to be rather more educated than to work in the fields as babes in arms. To where freedom was born, and pathos was such exhumation of this in performance by one recent House party term of office, whose term never ends conceptions of responsibility. If some measure of ignorance was that to meddle in the business of the worker and who would work in the fields. The grammar school found the need, allegedly, to. In 1624, later Sir Thomas Middlecott, was empowered by a private act of Parliament to found a free grammar school for the institution of the Latin and Greek languages and the English commercial and agricultural education to shelter from these parishes of Curtin, Sutton, Alga, Kirk and Fosdyke. By 1835 the school had 40 pupils, partly free and partly fee-paying. The head master appointed 1773, Dr. Charles Wildbar, 1736-1802, and later his son by the same name, 1767-1842, were alleged to have been diverting surplus income from the school's endowments for their own use, and failing to maintain educational standards. But how much is the measure of a pint pot when it is equated to a quart of only so much parliamentary lingo that could not be explained by the democracy that had founded by the time of William IV, following the death of King George III in 1820, could not be equated in international markets by such as even Lord Byron swimming across the Dardanelles of 1821. But nevertheless ranked until later in terms of its agricultural demise, that by 1885 was by educational standards resplendently or alleged to have been diverting in whose endowments for their own use and failing to maintain educational standards, that reminds one of the proverbial iPad upload, that you can always blame the teacher for not turning up, but it is much more difficult to blame the iPod upload. Get a load, or you find that you have been culminating into some principis of emperorship which you had no knowledge, and you wonder why. The histories of things such as the National Socialist Workers' Party of Germany was wished its history to be changed by people like Adolf Hitler, after the way he had been treated when indeed he had, as an art student, gone to attain a degree at college and not been allowed a place on the basis that his pictures and rantings and so forth were of a childish nature. But how far is history rated as legitimate? How far is failing to maintain educational standards dependent upon your uploaded teacher or its interpretation that the effective enemies of the revolution, the French Revolution of 1789, were in any way ranked as those who were actually wanting to restore the monarchy. You have to understand the Russian Revolution. But by 1885, and the management of the school was ultimately restructured in 1851, just before the Great Exhibition, that by 1885 William Cochrane was master. A new schoolhouse had been erected adjacent to his residence under the new scheme, the Endowed School Act, amended in 1898. The school was ranked as a second-grade grammar school. Now, don't run away with any misapprehension that second grade means that it's not first grade. Second grade may mean in resplendence to the way in which funding of its own pint pot is made into a quart, or made less of a pint by the paths where parliamentary squander, as indeed French hypocrisy and wages of bread were less than the measure expected by the starving. And so you seek a decent piano for the performance that in 1830 a girls' school indeed for 14 days and boarding pupils, as indeed a Sunday school, 32 males, 16 females, existed in the village of Curtin. He printed Hansard, he printed journals of the House of Commons from 1774 until his death. This is prompted with an accuracy with which Hansard printed parliamentary papers were often of the greatest service to government. Notably on one occasion when the proof sheets of the report of the Second Committee on the French Revolution were submitted to Pitt 24 hours after the deed had left his hands. Parliamentary records. He was the son of a Norwich manufacturer. He was educated at Curtin Grammar School in Curtin, Lincolnshire, and he was apprenticed to Stephen White at Norwich Pinter. Career. As soon as his apprenticeship had expired, Hansard started for London with only a guinea in his pocket and became a compositor in the office of John Hughes, 1703-1771, printed to the British House of Commons. Understand? Fernando Ray, Miss Fernando Ray, although was late, so Pointo il Señorito Fernando Ray, Vida! I am the player composer selling your piano, Fernando Ray, mi pianoforte. Il musico affrontato con il mio piano tiene no dispiare in prato in spada come partes in posada por calculare perceptio conceptio that declara effectively Isla dei jugadores nervos pianos ambos il meine pianoforte. The musician confronted with the new piano has the advantage of not after waiting or fathom weighted as rules already placed by any prescript contractual, of which they effectively isolates the player of the new piano's both and a conjectura preconcebida de calcular interpretation musical, be a predominantly independent de su mecanización. Esto caso es simplemente porque poco ninguna llegada. En caso de vida más meñado, poco la penestra ne tiene que ninguna efectividad maltada por percepción presentando del tipo mecánico. A preconceived conjecture of any musical interpretation. B, dominance hidden in its machining. This should simply be because few or none have played it. In the case of B, it's more often because the pianist has no dam. no measure, no dam, easily by mechanical type, preponderant perceptions. In other words, unless you know to clutch, my friend, you are afraid to even use it as a brake.
Saber vertusten si ver ersten verser enen der class. Qualificaciones dieses Musikers Band. Verliert ihr in selben befahren wird, dass es das ihr. Was es die lesen kann, ist Verser incorporate, das ist sein Bedeutung, bedarf es sein selber erkennen kann. Noch soll wie die Kanzler es auslesen Demokratie. Wer sehen sie, der sind des Gönnen Massiver Wer nicht wissen, an wem die Fristen taten, kommt nicht gesagt. Na, sehen sie tätig an Kasern ist, recht sie noch nicht, was sie kann, Wachseiten. Chef, wer diesen Chef kommt oder sie will sagen. Das wäre außerordentlich, was außenbildend wird. Dessen weniger sagt, der Distriktengang ist. So ihr merkt, wer mag oder der die Arbeitszeit genügend ist. Solch Absurdität, wer betrifft drauf, bestellt diesen der Käufer. Das begreift vielen von ihren Mitarbeitern.
For fear that it may be
Med ihren Namen
la terza della fabbricante registrata audiatizzato con complemento al facimento del tempo moderno descrive macchina dell'invenzione. A fabbricante Ligia rappresentò in particolare la moda basata in conseguenza che lei casa catena maintiene passata in più to compare sopra competitore. Neglect of obvious praise of manufacturers used in submission of art to the death of time, model, type, invention. A manufacturer appoints a special representative of their fashion based on mainly things that have kept to the firm the competitive spirit over their competitors. This, to some extent, is statistical. Est a meno tena nera innovazione artistica sidelined and natures mimos favor the meters. Domito che se stabacio en quio competidor les get present sus instrumentos por aplicar sus instrumentos por la fabricación de la mano es apreciada para enfatizar que le cliente fabricante pinta a su modelo. Tiene al efecto de producir un disimulante no solo escribe máquina, pero en esos modelos muestran aspecto el mismo como el otro. This often has new artistic innovations sidelined, the notes themselves, sidelined to please the myth. And this is a myth which has established in who a competitor they related their instruments for, fitted their instruments by making the way is concerned to emphasize the customer or clientele and manufacturer are running the model. In other words, who you build it for is how you make it. So it effectively is much as one might establish that it had not the effect of producing the dissimilarity among not only type but also model. long look at the same as the other. Look at the same as the other. Only pluricos dico donderare prima febronte fontes and gentuse pedalis in piano. Per ma soprattutto in riscaldamento e fabbricamento in 1839 explicated and connected la patente. The system convenzionale no nostro disputo da Trafalgar. Trafalgar. In cano ad contravenzione assoluta da patente era. Poi la canapia and Grande Britannia. Roba da Grande Britannia, roba da su patente. Roba da su patente brodo at Hassan. Aïe. Grande-Bretagne, le royaume de Supanton era disputé en 1839 pour l'ERA contre John Broadwood era. An example of the above is where the French manufacturers now to introduce ERA pedaling at their pianos, but more especially in the discovery of his death in 1839 explicated that one of the patents of the inventions embodied the absolute contravention of Erard patents by a company in Great Britain stolen by patent some years after the saga Broadwood's son. Great Britain robbing the patent. It's robbing the patent disparo in 1839 poi all'età contro Broadwood himself. Great Britain robbed his patent contested in 1839. How much concerns the death that robs the patent, that the dead men can never speak. The first destiny of the emperor, primo destino de este emperador. Esto per ser ver se me dire justed. Pero occhiali in corrigion, and further Tomas accusate aber jet canjada. Tai canjada confianza da pueblo. And a persona mi perfecta. Listen a ciao imperial com el sonata da velta. Santa Pacia, la utile de l'humain. Mondo es mundo comando, para que mundo musico, yo no puedo establecer tiempo como persona. This may be the last time I address you, but what in my heart that more than anything is accused be of having betrayed your trust of a people, and a persona may be infected into certo and compare come solida duenta and depreciare la canisca del mondo. Es el mundo que el mundo. Para que como músico no puedo estar mucho tiempo con personas. A persona much imperfect, it is true, such an empire further devolved through without content to the more useless struggles of your world. That world, to which as musician I would not belong. I would not belong as a people. Not belong. Duration. Para que mundo se ora dice sentenca tan solo mi devoid su propria fila nantio herico da como sociedad. Has donaca facilmente. E qualche stato di rivoluzione candidato da qualche libertà nell'Stato. thou poeta, thou poeta. To which world be it now said that never so merely masses divides its own rank and ad facto de facto such a society, hitherto cliply in any state of remuneration, accredited to any freedom by state of power. Que aún con esta momento de becas and excelencia, the power of transmission será siempre equipa la sociedad de Mrs. Garas and Solidarity Alex Infant, la sociologia, si de kia forma singulares in kiel principal, que simple dirige que fin, that to which although this because with the transmission by excellence does it will ever equate to society any more than it does merely to the ignorant. The ignorant, the innocent, the sociology, whereas whose kind to guide its sociology is beginning, then to whichever that is what end. Que causa expressa mi intention. In mi intention con respecto a mi musica, mi propias competitions, matriculates et delema. Que como que fiera comparativa externa iPad carga. An iPad carga. Explica uno poco pero muchos fondatori that much in my intent and its own music my compositions matriculate the dilemma your which whose now whose how that outside equates your esteemed prowess in iPad upload. Explain not one or few but many seller. Oh man, musical, como sobre cabeza de la conjecture popular que puede ser limitada por la carrera limitada revolucionaria e inventa de crear de piano. Call them musicians, how at basis of conjecture popularity can now be constrained by the legitimate than the misdirected legitimacy of the revolutionary, the inventor, the piano builder. And my friend, I give you the Russian, the French Revolution. And you heard about the English Revolution, that you had no less ability to judge what is revolution, except when your history changed and they tell you lies. But that whosoever by composition expresses something else, as I express in mine, the silence, as I express in mine, the skittles of mine where others attend to failure, then fail to express even anything very much, even ever less. Non cosa deve sopravvivere come mascio e me, fracca senza processimento trismonte ligato. Ah no, para explicar che sermonte brutomo sobre de pontius capricitis donigia con nigan proveda. Nigan proveda la residio excluded that of conviction. Not one thing about truth, not one thing about art, as much more it may fail dismally, and so sadly IT has not come to explain more savagely and brutally about the cooperative dependencies of power, neither provider in that resided exclusivity of trust. Come suat grandezza. Conda suat condezza. Conda anche crocere sentido prendo caiore ioto della vacation della gente caga per centenario son principos of the canticaret. Caioi do doma esta vecchio hecco vision. Yo Canada no existan, sin embargo, tienda gender and prejudice de probabilidad esta, o coda and the don de pergenda or abandonado. Caesar ma pas menos capera el. That is your art? Greatness? Your art greatness? That in any sense may redeem itself by evoking the science of the upload to replace the truer principles of integrity. That the integrity of one word, integrity of one sentence. Seller, how expect their music, their esteemed revolution to proceed beyond the shores of border. That here no more this replenishment makes void where none existed, yet bearing urgent and principle forsaken choices. Hitherto and wherein from now, cease more to be less than art than void. Scribere d'artista, andiamo su Dio. Canta credere deficienze della resolution parallele sonori segmenti dell'intenzione dell'artista devoto del Nico studiato. That who subscribes to the artist by upload, who is your God? Consecrate to the definitions of resolution, to which the personal and the intent surely intent of devout artists be more admired and associated to. In this becoming onestamente la presentazione del piano come un fracasso umano. In this becoming is the representation of the piano as the human failure. The human failure. Después de la vez pasada me llegué egoísta. Pero lo que emocionado me cae todo de las manos. Accusados abancanas, angana conventions de la puebla. This may be the last that I turn to you. But what hurt my heart, more than hurt anything else, is that I should be accused of having cheated, deceived the confidence of the people, and pasó la emoción perfecta en felicidad del imperio como en sonidos de la guerra, alcanzan de precio la luca más intitulada usted mundo, aquel mundo, como le musical produce largo como un jump. A very imperfect persona is to the empires as delicate as sound, but without content the most useless fights you world. Fights you world, that as a musician I cannot belong as a people. Esta aquí no es la frontera matrimonial de transmission por excelencia. Considera hito de banda que una vez compare con sociedad. Sanctiare det hette simplemente el ignorante o innocent. Acá el mundo es allo Dios nunca entonces simplemente medio de su propia fila, ni voce efecto de como sucede. Hasta poca sensata de caractere de stagos que sono crediti caractere libertà poetada da poeta. La sociologia no has vienen para explicar parcialmente y de manera sobre de principios cooperativa de poder como un engana besta de todo, que es la destructividad de la confianza. Esto en calculation puede mi la vacation of the tendencies de cargar para sostener los principios de la integridad. Sociology, integridad. The sociology has not come. They come to explain more savagely and brutally over the corporate units of power than any caterer that resided exclusively in confidence. This is in any sense can redeem yourself by evocation of the science of load to replace the tour of integrity principles. Esto no io messa, valonno ancora vecchio donda no esito. Livan agente nimagenzio pionse banden stesse cose del donda in ora. Yea, mai meno jaten poelo. Esto kene squid all'artista porcaga kene studio. Contacae difectiones religion tail personale. Segment on the tension dell'artista, what it might say, premiata tutto socio. Hector so, presentation del piede come la presa umana mai da stessa come s'attende con Luke Hansard. La legata della pubblicazione del comune casamento della Frontera de loca e per la tradizione del nepotismo. The star is the representation of the piano as the human failure more perhaps than it has to do with Luke Hansard. Or the advent of the House of Commons. Publication is devout than it is, less by the devout than it is by the tradition of nepotism. Where will it all end? ¿Qué es here? Esta reputación de piano como efecto humano. Affacazzo humana reterza nica a no evento Gutenberg. Y nunca o no evento ni Gutenberg el entendido calcula intencional. Hatiani interclusio affrinidad. Allega. That this is the representation of the piano as a human failure. So far removed from this never not the invention of Gutenberg had any intent towards. nor even affinity to bequeath. Immortalis Principalis, grazie. Mis piano di la Tercera Frontera, Fernando Ray. For Fernando Ray, I am Don Amore. What you can find it yourself on YouTube. My compositions, including Skittles. Mi piano di la Tercera Frontera. Hello?
I have not been born. I know nothing about integrity, as you know it, which is false. Oh, it is an abominable lie. That is true. That when Mozart, publisher, who went to meet him in Mainz, he did not know Johann Andre. Mozart did not know him when it was not too late, and they met. At the coronation of Prince Leopold II, Holy Roman Emperor, whose time in office was going to be Brexited as much as purged by the absolution of anything to do with states of Habsburgian patriotism that could withstand the struggles of 18th century Europe, that would leave Mozart struggling to find not only an abominably disconcerting emblem of monarchy in George I, but also the struggle to find any peace since the execution of Charles I in 1649. Comprises of the piano concertos 19 and 21, which at that time in Mainz, Germany, and the explicit compromises Mozart expects you to make the hero, well, of what then? Still after the execution. The struggle to find a morbid isolated of monarchy, the disruptive anti-views about the method of music, and not peace at all with the Dutch. Oh, the Dutch. I perjure the seas perjure the seas. That beyond the prospects that unforeseen in England of a future revolution. And you are expecting, aren't you, a future revolution? How would you like it to be represented in your pangs of excited desire? The mere prospect of unforeseen England. You could not imagine what you would be doing after the dissolution of King James II of England and VII Scotland. For very long you could only find it hard to have one clue what you are doing. But William, the king after the glorious revolution of Orange, that William of Orange, whose glorious conception failed to include Queen Mary II for very long. Let's face it, James II was taking some living down, whose life was going to be in much exile, as that was exempted to Scotland and expected to hide itself in the pangs of l'anglais français. And as you have little understanding music, with the songs of now the President's lovely woman, and the lovely women when they were under King James as Charles. Oh dear, we hope they were not also under King James II. We know that they weren't, unless they were French. But then they were under King Charles II. Those lovely women, that Grace Del Gwyn, are one of the first stars of the stage. Then James II was not much popular polarity prime as much as Queen Anne really was going to do nothing. Much to do with music. Then I left to the monarchic exploits of the Georgian dynasty, sadly, this period, so much more part of the rich tapestry of Prussia and Austria's great musical pride becoming dominant in skill. Apart from some number of wars, which by 1750s had seen some exploits and exiles of Austrians themselves, coming, for instance, Burkhard Chili to John Baldwin's son, who were a sad demise apart from the exploits of the great Amadeus Wolfgang Mozart. The some number of war, the tragedies of the characteristic pathos that sent Mozart from King George to the Chelsea Hospital. I could have done it for less. And the French Revolution. The French revolting in the French Revolution. But who are less revolting than the less and the great, so-called, of your own people, than 21st century despondency about consumerism, which never endowed nor showed Cadiz is not where the main credential has any cadence, does it, in the patriotism of Nelson that leaves the man dying. Cadiz is not where three main cadential reasons lay path to enrich this bankrupt country of its perjury in what you know and believe to be truth. There is a case in Measure 71 that was imprisoned, causing things which ends in the good old way, with some rather formal groups of cadential chords. But what is the good old way, viewer? Music, an art and a language that's expressed by no other than Walter Raymond in Spalding. We assume that he wasn't in Spalding as much as in Raymond. But what is the truth about Oates' famous conspirator's plot in the Popish plot of 1768? You would not have known Mozart then, whose, let's face it, mother was 10 years off her own passing, was going to leave England in some, shall we say, equivocations of corruption regarding the Holy Roman Empire, the dissolution of the very fast patriotic ceremony which anointed Leopold II as Holy Roman Emperor, really among the last of the children of Maria Theresa. Oh, Theresa, how we imagine Brexit will not be so conspired as the Popish plot of 1678, even 100 years before Mozart was even losing his mother. So those are famous conspirators of 1678 to 81, you would need, with a strong hand of decision, with a fictitious conspiracy, conducted, shall we say, by so many of your salesmen, who would arrive at your door and say they are looking to buy a good piano, and they don't even know how to find a fine, how to find a finesse. 1681 with the kingdoms of England, this is about it, and Scotland. But this cannot live down, can you, the exploits of Mary Queen of Scots and abominable executions of those people not supporting in Catholicism. It is no wonder, was it, that before Queen Elizabeth I, who was one of the arguably greater monarchs, who never graced, shall we say, so much as old age, as hid the face, that the kings of England in 1700 were vastly different to those expected in 1678, before the abdication of King James II was even thought of. That by the anti-Catholic hysteria and hysteria and coglysteria. It's alleged that the more existed in the extensive Catholic conspiracy to assassinate Charles II. Ah, yes. You would need, wouldn't you, to control your people. But Charles II, it accuses that led to the executions of at least 22 men and participated in the exclusion bill crisis. Eventually, Oates indicate web of accusations fell apart, leading to the arrest and convictions for perjury. The Earl of Shaftesbury, elder brother, former Justice of Parliament, ultimately at war with his own people through failing leaders to impending future James II. And you may know nothing about piano. You may know nothing about music. You may be people whose conception is of integrity. But this false concept and free angle is at war, not to mention the despondent, despicable behaviour which sent George III into such exclusion from its own people that he could do little about the French Revolution. That by the time Mozart was dead in January 1791, you would not have dreamt that your idea of a real piano could be established. Well, you're looking at it. You are looking at the publisher's dream to make for this person, which I have never seen in the 21st century, to make for this explicit genius, Wolfgang made this Mozart the finest derivation of all that to which he inspired and all that he aspired in the greatest musical instrument then which had ever been built, far surpassing anything which could have ever been built in the war, in any war, for those fleeting industries which bracketed of the multitudinous concepts that falsely explain publishing, leave me in not any doubt that you have no integrity and no judgment of what is truth, any more than you knew it and your oaths in 1689. And what was your glorious revolution is a cadential abomination of a burnished principle, so deft in the art of persuasion that you persuaded even yourself to be so corrupt. And you call yourself a democracy, Mr. Eccleston, deft in the art of paging, editing your own journals and making yourself not as famous perhaps as Oliver Cromwell. Das Aufpassen helfen Sie nicht. Sie können nicht lesen. Das, wenn Sie auf neuen Person lassen. Das Sorge auf das sei. Seit Tagen seit Ehren nicht. Die Wehre ist die Technik einer Technokratie ganz vollkommen wird gelehrt. Das kann Sie sogar mehr erzählen keinem Technik, denn ein kann es prägen. Ist er Sie als so gemacht beschreiben, kann das Dienst dass der Stephen der Immortalis ist Sie als Säger nicht wissen. Es müssen haben, oder müssen sich nicht, sogar ich schläf nicht. So wie es hier ist, werden Sie sich nicht evangelisieren. Das ist Gesinnungsgesicht, das nicht selbst besichtigt. Sie werden nicht das Licht. Sondern ist verwehrt zwei, vor 3 Wochen. Bis sie erklärt, wer ich Betroffenheiten gegen den angefangen, wer der noch nicht erzählen kann, nicht besser, was ich kann. Werkzeugen, die können in einigen Leuten das Deinesken an ihren Kunden sein. Ein Wolken gibt ich nicht, wird ich nicht, sie konnten nicht erben, noch selten antworten. So wir verzichten, sie wir ersten welcher ihnen der Fall. Qualificaciones des Musikers Band. Verliert ihr in Saufen befahren wird, dass ihr was es die lesen kann, ist, welcher incorporate, das ist sein Bedenken, bedarf es sein selber erkennen kann. Noch sowohl wie die Kanzler es Sozialismus Demokratie. Wer sehen sie, der sind des Gössen Massiere. Wer nicht wissen, an wen sie Christen taten, kommt nicht gesagt. Na, sehen sie das an Kasern ist, rest sie noch nicht, was sie kann. Wachseiten. Chef, wer diesen Chef kommt oder sie will erst sagen. Was wer außerordentlich was außenbildend wird, dessen weniger hat, der bis Fertiggang ist. So ihr merkt, wer mag oder erst die Abendstadt gemieden ist das. Solch Absurdität, wer betrifft drauf, bestellt diesen der Käufer. Das begreift vielen von ihren Mitarbeitern. Mit ihren Namen erliegt es Landlocken gab. An Befehl liegt das Werf, wie er kann, gibt einige Seelen in ihrer sehr niedrigen auf. Und doch tut nach Juden gefährdet.